Hello everyone, Eb here with Tech Motorsports, and today we'll be wrenching on my my M3. On the last video I stated that I would be doing a valve adjustment or checking the valve clearance in between 1,500 to 2,000 miles. That time has come. The engine is sitting right around 1750 to 1,800 miles. So it's time to get that job done. So in the interim, I've had some coil packs go out. I pretty much was replacing a coil pack almost every month. So I went ahead and bought a new set. I'll be installing that at the same time. And also, since I've done my first oil change, I've kind of did a somewhat of a break-in. I started revving the car up a little bit more higher, going about 6,000 6,500 RPMs. And then that's when I started noticing a couple little different things. After a while, I started losing a little bit of low-end torque, like right around 2,000, 2,500 RPMs, up to 3 grand. Right after like 3,500 is when it was much more closer to 4 grand, but in between 3,500 and 4 grand, that's when I would notice it would clear up. So as I started doing it and I started driving it, I started getting in another code. So the codes that I got was a B8, which is the Vanos Inlet, and then I've got code 07, which is cam sensor inlet. And another oddball that I was getting, which was, I scratched my head a little bit, kind of looking at a few different things, was code E6. So E6, I took care of that right away, and it was E6 is the electric throttle body set point actual value. All right, so that normally is the linkage from the actuator. You got to remember these cars technically have 3 TPS sensors, one on the accelerator pedal, one that is on the throttle actuator, and the other one is on the end of the shaft of the individual throttle body. So there's 3 of those. So originally I was like, man, do I got a bad TPS? I don't know. So I just kept driving it a little bit and not getting on it, because it's when you would get on it and go like past one-third throttle pedal, that's when the code would start to come up and it would put me in limp mode. So I got my trusty wife in the car and I had her do the actuator or the throttle, and long and behold, one of my clamps that I swore to myself up and down that they were clocked correctly. Unfortunately, the hose clamp was just barely rubbing enough to where one of the TPN sensors would not meet up with all of them, so it would throw me the code. So very easy fix. All I had to do is just change and reclock that hose clamp, because I did not use the OEM clamps. So yeah, so technically what I've got to do now is going to do the valve clearance. I'm going to address the B8 code, Vanos Inlet, which is I'm going to do the Bison valve solenoid, the Vanos solenoid kit upgrade. Going to be doing that as well. I'll be addressing the code 07, which is the cam sensor. I have a good used but a good one cam sensor, so I'll be putting that in as well. I will address my coil packs while I'm there, and also I will be upgrading to the Rogue Engineering Vanos line, as my OEM Vanos line, the hard line, shows signs of a small little crack, so I do have an oil leak on the Vanos unit itself, so I'll be replacing that as well. Also, I have, which I left this one to last because it's odd, this one's been coming up the whole entire time, is code 69, which is the engine temperature Implausible. So I'll be taking care of that. I just think I've gotten this code pretty much with almost every code that I've gotten, so I'm not going to worry about that code right now. What I'm going to end up doing is fix my other codes and see if that code disappears. I have read in forums that sometimes that code attaches to other different things, so I'm going to leave that. I'm going to take those guys advice and just go through the other main codes and then go from there. So let's get started. Let's go ahead and pop the hood open and start the wrenching process. Okay, so I am going to do the Vanos solenoid pack first, and I've already removed, or I've taken the fan blade off, and I just set it in there. That should give me a little bit more extra room to take this off. I also got a rag down there in the bottom, so that way any of the oil that's coming from the solenoid kit will drip down in there and not make a huge mess. And I will take care of the line a little bit later, and then the valve train, so I'll start on that. So with the when I first built the motor, I went ahead and purchased one of these, the O-rings itself for the plate. So I did purchase them again, so I will be putting them back on, new ones back on. So all it is just going to be taking these Torx, reverse Torx bits off, and I'm gonna go. I already cleaned this, so I'm not gonna clean it again. It's only got 1,700 miles when I first originally did the Vanos kit. So I'm just going to swap her all out. It's been fresh new oil since day one, so yeah. So here's the actual block itself. What you do is when you clean it, you put a magnet between these solenoids, or well, the other solenoids. You put a magnet here and a magnet here as well, and what it does, it opens the passages. So you throw some brake cleaner in it, and it goes through one passage, and then you put the magnets in place, and then you spray some brake cleaner, and it cleans the other passages. Which you do it through this right here. This one also has a little filter, and this filter is new. I did replace that when I built the Vanos. So here's the solenoid, the little 4 bolts, and B8-Vanos. So yeah, we've got to remove the label as instructed. I don't know why, but they want it removed. So label is removed, and what you can end up seeing is, if you look, you can see that's where they opened it up, and they reseal it, and what they end up doing is they resolder the OEM solder joints, and those do tend to break and give you intermittent issues, being pretty much the ones I was having. So very easy to install. So now I got the O-rings on the plate, and I'm just going to put it on here and ever so gently put it on. All right, here we go. And there she is. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove the line from up here, and 10mm bolt down here, and one towards the right underneath the head, 10mm bolt to get that off, and then see if I could just somehow get my hand in there and maybe take it off the back, that small little round canister that the other end of the line connects to. So let's see what I can get. Already loosened the Vanos line from the top and from the 10mm bolt down in the center. So all I have left is just to go underneath and take the one off the black little canister back there. And what I did is I just jacked up this one side of the car and took the wheel off so I could get my hand in there, and I'll be able to get my 14 in there. So yeah, let me get to that. So here we go, the new one. It's got the crush washers, so yay. So I'm leaving everything loose, and I'm not tightening anything until I get the bottom one in and get it routed the way I want. So I think that looks good here, but we'll see what underneath brings. Okay, so I got the bottom one in. She's already tightened down. I was able to look, make sure that, make sure she's not rubbing anywhere. And the only thing is she's going to be leaning on is going to be the coolant hose, and she has not tightened down yet. So I'm going to pull it up and give it a little bit more slack. Up front, up top. There we go, just like that. Okay. So now I'm just going to go ahead and tighten her down. Bam! All right, she done. Okay, so again, I'm throwing this in. I didn't film this section, as I'm glad I didn't, but the Vanos line. So I'm gonna be putting a call into Rogue Engineering. And just to give you what's going on, let me just explain what happened. So I got the Vanos pressure line in, and they provided the crush washers in the kit, which was great. My gut feeling was I know that they didn't fit very well. There was too much movement, and if you look at the banjo nut and you look at the OEM crush washers, they fit nice and snug. But I went against my gut feeling and I used their crush washers. Well, that was not the right thing to do. And let me show you one little thing, and then I will explain the rest. So there's the ceiling of my garage. There is a lot of pressure that goes in that Vanos line, and because the crush washers were too big, it didn't set very well. It shot up on my ceiling. So here's the line, and you can see the crush washers. So what I end up doing, because when I built the motor, I put brand new crush washers here, so what I end up doing is I reused them. I had more of a leak here, as you can see from the ceiling, than I had in the bottom, but I had a small one in the bottom. But the worst part of it all is, at first I didn't notice it, and I literally lost about a quart of oil, and it was everywhere. And I mean everywhere down in here, underneath the hood. It was a mess. I ordered another one of these lines, so I think the product is great. It's just I was just provided with the wrong crush washers, and like I stated earlier, my gut feeling was they were the wrong ones. But I went with their stuff, and they were just too big. What I was getting is it just wouldn't set right here very well, and it was just off a little bit to where it was just enough to where the pressure came through one of these little sections here, and that caused the leak. And I had it both on top and the bottom. So yeah, hopefully they'll get the message, and they'll be able to take care of that in case anybody wants to purchase one, and not go through the mess that I had to go through. All right, so it's valve adjustment time. Time to start taking all this off. So I'm taking the breather on top of the valve cover off. I bought this new, and I have noticed when I was replacing the coils one by one, I was having a little oil leak down here. So I'm gonna, when I looked at it, it looks like my the grommets didn't set in very well. So I'm gonna take it off just to make sure that it is, and it's just not me, and it looks like it might have been a tad bit loose, but okay, so I had to do a little bit of backing up. Had to take my fan back off, and radiator shaft. Another brain fart. Just didn't even think about it at the beginning, but she's all off. So got my socket down on the bottom where the crank is at. So 7 thousandths is good. 8, a nice snug one. A 9 thousandths, and then 8 thousandths. 9 thousandths should not fit in there. And the exhaust is 11 is good. Should have a nice little drag to it. 12 should be a nice tight drag. 13 should not fit. So I got my 7. All right, that one's a little draggy. Same with that one. And I will go up to 8. 8. 8's really snug. So I'm still good at 7. Yeah, 8 is really snug, 8 thousandths. So 7 is a small drag, but 8 is a harder drag. So I'm good with number 6 intake. And I'm writing them down so that way I don't mess up. And then I'm going to do number 1, 2, 3, 4, because that one is up on the exhaust side. So the exhaust side is, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to stick and do it like the way I was going to do it. I'm just going to do all my intakes and then do all my exhaust. All right, so now I got cylinder number 2. So it's my 7. Yep, nice and snug. If it's gonna be snug like that, I'm not even gonna worry about putting an 8 in. That one's just a little bit. Yeah, see, there we go. So that one's still good. So I'm gonna end up doing all the way. I'm gonna do all of them, and so I'll do all my whole intake, and then I go back and do my exhaust, and get that going. If there's any of them that I need to change, I have my kit here. Hopefully, I have all the shims that I need. I did have to order more. This is my second time. When I was building the motor, I had to order 2 kits, and I just had enough, and I should have went ahead and ordered the ones that I used the most of, but I didn't. I forgot. I really didn't think I was going to be doing this weekend. I was going to wait till another weekend or 2, but it is what it is. So yeah, I'm going to keep working on the intake, and then jot down my numbers and work on the exhaust. Okay, so everything checked out fine from the rebuild. So it's 1,700 miles ago. Pretty much everything was right. It was a nice snug at the minimum, and went up to the next one, and it was really snug or it wouldn't go in. So nothing on the big side, which is great. So all I got to do is just do a little bit of cleanup and start assembling everything back together, and then she's done. So let's see what else pops up that I gotta change. Well, besides the fan clutch now, that's bad, that I gotta replace that. So sweet. Beautiful new. Beautiful and new. Okay, so like always, seem to have a little bit of filming issues every once in a while. It comes with the territory when you're trying to do everything on your iPhone. I got a few phone calls and stuff in between, and it kind of threw me off. And I thought I hit the record button when I was starting to do this, and it didn't hit the record button. So I'm going to go over what I end up doing, which is I'm going to throw this into the mix right where I should have done it. All right, so for the inlet cam sensor, which is on the intake side, procedure calls for removal of the airbox and the whole intake planet itself, and with mine, the SMG reservoir there. So I did not want to take it out. I have taken it out a couple times before. It's really not that bad, but I was like, man, I just don't want to have to take it back out.
it's a little bit of a pain, but since I had a lot of stuff apart, I started kind of looking around, and I came up with the idea of just removing the actual the rails themselves. So you have the and I forget what this is called, and I apologize. It's just the rail for the throttle bodies, and I know the vacuum line attaches to that. And this is your fuel rail, and then your injector harness. So what I ended up doing is I disconnected my IAC valve connector here, and then I removed this 10mm bolt and that 10mm bolt, and followed the line here that goes to the booster, and I disconnected it here, and I just popped it off the booster, and I took that whole assembly completely out, gave me a lot more room. And then what I ended up doing was I popped my injector rail with the injector harness out, disconnected the TPS sensor to give me a little bit more room, and I technically shifted the whole rail towards the front of the engine to give me plenty of room to work back there in the back. That's the way, it's the only way it's gonna work if you do it that route. It does take one special tool, which is a special tool that you probably have in your drawer. It just takes a little bit of a modification, and it's this bad boy. All it is I think this is a T5 Allen wrench, and I had to just cut this section down because it's originally too long, and you are dealing with very little space back there, so you will have to end up doing that. Once all this is out of the way, the rail and stuff, it will be easier to look and see and to mess with the sensor in the back. So what you will be fighting back in the back, just to let you know, is going to be that cover right there where the zip tie is at, and that covers the back end of the butterfly section of the individual throttle bodies. So I think it took me about the same amount of time to remove the intake and to go the route that I went. I know I could have done it quicker. I was working with a busted knuckle, and I kept hitting it because it's a very small confined area back there, and a couple tears were shed because it really hurt. And but yeah, I made it happen, sucked it up, and put it all together. And really, if it wasn't for this and cutting this down, there's no way I could have done that. I mean, I was looking at doing a swivel, an extension, going back to the back. Did not work. But if I did it again without being injured, I probably would have done it much more quicker the way I did it than having to do it the normal procedure, which is to remove the intake plenum and such. So yes, got it done. She's in. So let's keep moving on.
And there she is. She's all put back together. All the valves checked out fine. There was no adjustment needed. On the intake side, they were right at 7 and 8 thousandths would barely fit. If it did fit, it was hard to drag out. So I'll call that a nice, a good 7. The exhaust side was 11. A couple 12s went in there, but it was tight to pull out. So again, great. So now just gonna run it now and see what other issues pop up down the road. I will take it for a test drive soon and see what happens with codes. I think it was B6 and 07, which is the inlet Vanos cam sensor codes. So stay tuned. All right, so it's been like about a week or so. So after I've done all the stuff, and just make sure I run it through its paces, and guess what? My torque is back. She rips. It's awesome. So I know I stated earlier that code 69, that engine code, well, that code has disappeared as well. It has not come back, and it's one of those things that it's odd. And I have noticed that code from the beginning that I built the motor, that I've been getting that code, but I've read up and from the forums, and it's just been one of those codes that just keeps following. So I didn't worry about it. If it did come back up, then I would look at the engine temp sensor and just technically replace it. But so far so good. The car has been awesome. No oil leaks, no nothing, and so yeah. So appreciate you guys hanging in there. Like always, like and subscribe. It always helps the channel out. And if there's any questions or anything like that, please put them in the comments, and I'll reply as soon as I can. Like always, thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.